And welcome back to No Sleep Sleepover. This episode is brought to you by our jobs because they're the only ones paying us. We don't have any sponsors still. That's just a friendly
Still,
reminder.
Liquid IV, I'm trying to think who else do I hear on the podcast ads. Anyone, please hit us up.
MeUndies. We could do MeUndies.
I've never heard of MeUndies on a podcast before, but I'm into it.
Yeah, no, they have like the matching underwear sets. Like I'm talking about them like, yeah. Anyways, I don't own a pair. I would own a pair, if they sent us free pairs. But I hear good things about them from people who get ads. So I don't know how reliable that is. But you can get like matching sets and stuff. And
I love it.
really
Let's
cool.
work on it.
Yeah, seriously. MeUndies, hit us up, please. Anyways, welcome back. I'm Logan. That's Matt. And we are back again.
And you've been on some trips. So what have you been up to?
I have. I went camping in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, also known as the UP. And that was a lot of fun. I went camping earlier this year, but only for a weekend. So this was like a whole week trip, and it was a lot of fun. And I slept in a tent, and it rained, and so I got wet and it cold. So that was fun. I got 1 billion bug bites. I think I broke my toe.
Oh, wow. So all in all, maybe not the best. I don't know.
No, but
sound
those
like
were
a glowing recommendation. Like, well, it was nice. I have 1 billion bug bites and I broke my toe and it rained in the tent. So yay.
No, I always remember camping as, kind of like roughing it in the woods and stuff. And so that was just a reminder, like, oh yeah, that is what it is. To be fair, I did break my toe. It was my own fault. I was trying to chop wood, and then the wood came off the axe and dropped on my toe. So,
but to be fair, you wouldn't have been chopping wood had you not been camping, right?
That's true. But
it's not like it's not like you're gonna like finish this podcast and be like,
go chop
roomies, I shall go collect wood for harvest. It's.
I actually do have a fire pit in my backyard, though.
Oh, but do you? Do you go and cut wood for it, or do you buy it at like Home Depot for like $5?
I just buy it. Actually, I did buy it from this one woman on Facebook one time.
Oh.
I went on my community page and I said, hey, it's really late and the stores are closed. Does anyone sell wood right now? And this lady said, yep, message me. She messaged me and said, here's my address. Come pick it up. And I said, all right. I did.
Not going to lie. That would be very good of a serial killer to do that method. Be like looking out for posts and been like, yeah, come over to my house at 10 p.m. to get that random object you want. And then
Yeah, after I did it, I was like, that probably wasn't smart, but I did it and I was fine. Anyways, camping was really fun. It was really, really pretty. If you've never been to the UP in Michigan, I was right on Lake Superior, crystal clear water, which is such a stark difference from Lake Erie.
Oh my God, Lake Erie looks like mud.
I literally was just walking through and I could just see the bottom of the water. You could just see your feet so clearly. It just looked like glass. Everything was so beautiful. I had so much fun with the people that I was with, and it was a really good time overall. But bugs just don't like me, and neither does wood, I guess. But
wood hates me. Metal's ambivalent. Plastic and I get along.
Yeah, we're best friends. But then after that, I went on another mini vacation. It was kind of just a long weekend. And that was also to Michigan, just because Michigan is right there. It's so close and it has so much to it. And so I went to a city, town, whatever it is, called New Buffalo.
A city town named New
Buffalo. I don't know.
Why it feels like one of those like historic towns where it's like you can get like authentic saltwater taffy and like.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you could.
They have like a cafe with a bunch of hipsters and like,
oh yeah,
like 500 thrift stores.
Yeah, it was like right on the water again. And it was really cute. And so we went to the beach. We just did a little local shopping. We went to local breweries. I went to a brewery that was in an old church. So the church had shut down. They bought it and turned it into a brewery, which was really cool. And they had really good beer. Shout out to them. And then I went to Chicago for a day, and I had never been to Chicago before. That was
Oh,
fun.
I was gonna say this whole thing felt like it was sponsored by the Michigan Tourism Board. Like I was
I
about to
know.
hear like pure Michigan at the end of
Seriously.
that.
Is that Tim Allen that does those Michigan commercials?
Is it Tim Allen? I thought it was just some rando. I didn't know that that
No,
was just some celebrity.
I'm pretty sure it's Tim
Oh,
Allen.
I'll have to check
Is I
clears, you know.
Tim Allen? Yes, Tim
I'll do
Allen, because I
I'll
think
do
he's from Michigan.
tourism. I'll do tourism for like North Dakota or I don't know. What's another state that like no one cares about? I don't know.
Wyoming? Do people do people care about Wyoming?
Go visit Yellowstone and that's it. Wyoming.
Ta-da!
You can
And
do
then
it in like one day. Wyoming.
seriously, there's probably
Oh
not
my
much to
gosh.
see up there. I don't
Yeah,
really know.
I
I've
don't
never
know.
been.
We're
But
just
that's what I've
haters.
been up to.
Wyoming haters on this show, apparently.
We just
But
hate a lot of things, and I think that's kind of part of our identity.
which is so funny because we're very positive, like
Oh
loving
my
people.
gosh,
And yet
yeah.
here on this podcast, we get together and we're like, you know what I don't like? I don't like how she wears those pants and blah blah blah. And it's like, what? Who
It's
are
just
we?
put a microphone in front of someone and they will just ramble about the stupidest things and every little thing that's on their mind, and it just gives you so much confidence, and it's hard to explain until you're here. I
Yeah.
mean, when we first started podcasting, which has been about a year now.
Oh wow,
Not
really?
not this specific podcast, but yeah.
I'm gonna look now because I think actually you might be right. We might have like a
think it
year
is.
celebration.
I think I it's not for this specific one. It was for our other one, RIP. But
Well, that one was a mini series, to be fair. That
yeah.
one was designed, and that one might come back eventually in a different form. But just so you know, our first episode, October 29th of last year. So
of
we
this
are
one,
gearing up. Yeah, we are gearing up for a 1 year.
we're almost there, and we only have like 15 episodes, maybe.
No, I think we're at over 20. We're
Are
at this is gonna be our 23rd episode. Isn't that great?
Wow, look at us go. Which I
23rd
mean,
episode.
we're doing pretty well, you know. Good.
I
for
mean,
us.
we're doing well in the sense that like we enjoy doing it, and that's all that matters. You know, we could
Yeah.
have 10 listeners, 100 listeners, 1,000,000 listeners.
We're
It's
having
definitely
fun.
not the last one.
I
I don't know.
wish.
There was a quote. I don't know who it was, but it was a great line. I think it was like someone who wanted to be an astronaut wasn't able to become an astronaut, but they heard a quote about this idea of like you have to enjoy the experience and the hard work, even if it doesn't bring like the success or the end result you wanted to. And I think that's really true. You know, I think if we were to be doing this to try and be something, to try and be, you know, hot shots, and like that was our main goal, I think that the quality and, you know, our enjoyment of it would not be as strong. So
Yeah,
you kind of have to take
and
it step by step.
I do enjoy doing this. It's fun.
Oh yeah,
Like I
me
said,
too.
put a microphone in front of someone and they just ramble. And I didn't think that I'd be that kind of person. Like, yeah, I just want to talk about everything and word vomit into a microphone for everybody to hear. But here I am being super dumb every week. But I enjoy it.
Every week's a little bit of a stretch. Every 2 weeks, maybe.
Every once in a while, I have a good idea, but
every weekish, you know, or every 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
yeah,
There we go.
and then it just like hits, and it's just like stupid. And I feel like it's gonna be a stupid week, so that's why you're gonna take over, and you have something really fun to share with us.
Should I tell you real quick about my Toronto trip?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm so sorry.
So no, you're totally fine. I was just it's funny how we all vacationed recently on the Great Lakes. But yeah, I was at Toronto. I love Toronto. I will say it's very pricey and the traffic is terrible, but I think we're kind of spoiled as Clevelanders. Like, you know, if there's traffic in Cleveland, it like maybe is like a 10-minute like thing. But like in Toronto, there was like traffic. I was like sitting in like tons of traffic, like the whole trip. It was like insane. But it was great. No, it was we went to Kensington Market, which was really cool. Kind of as like almost think of like West Side Market, but instead of having it in that giant kind of market building, if it was like homes were like businesses in the front. It was really cool.
I like that.
And then the big point was to see Gaga. So it was really fun.
That's right.
Excellent concert. So good. I think the best pop performer in the game, personally, for me. Totally worth it. So I'm really glad.
Haven't you been waiting for 2 years?
Yeah, I bought the tickets in February of 2020.
Mm.
And the show is supposed to be August of 2020. So this, the fact that the show got postponed to August of 2022, and like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. And so I think that's like the
Mhm.
longest time I've like held onto a ticket,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
honestly insane. I would honestly just give up at that point. I'd be like, you know what? I probably will be doing something. I'm just gonna sell
Mhm.
this and
Yeah.
figure it out. It's
Yeah.
just that's insane that so many people are going to concerts and events and stuff that were supposed to be in 2020.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting. Like this year, like I went to my first concert since 2020 in February or March. So like just to kind of like get back into it and like be doing things, it's like it
Yeah.
still feels kind of fresh and weirdly weird, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, I feel like if I'm in a crowd too big, I'm like, I don't think I should be here. It just feels
yeah, there
like a
was like
super spreader.
yeah, well, there was like 50,000 people at the Rogers Center, so it was
Ooh.
crazy. But yeah, I didn't catch anything, except a good concert. I caught that.
Yeah.
So,
Ah, so
um,
fun.
all right. Well, are you ready for a little true crime?
Yes, we're doing true crime
I
part 2.
I think you're gonna love this one,
I'm so
Logan. Have
excited.
you ever heard of Balloon Fest '86?
I have.
Are you ready to talk about it?
Okay, yeah.
I like how. Are you
Okay.
nervous?
I mean, I was nervous of the true crime, but less so I think of the balloon fest. I don't really.
Well, it is technically true crime, and I'll tell you why. We'll get
Okay.
there. We're gonna
Okay.
get there.
Okay, I'm ready.
Well, I picked this because I've always been fascinated by the story,
Yeah.
and I know in the past, we've talked about like how you're like not super big on like the stabby, stabby, punch, punch, killy, killy.
Yeah.
So this one I felt like was really interesting because I do think that there was some kind of crimes involved, maybe not intentional, maybe not necessarily like what they were trying to do, right? But as a result of the consequences.
Ooh,
So let's get into it. So
fun.
picture it, 1986 Cleveland, the Cleveland United Way. They're like, we need to break a world record. So for those who are like me and you're like, okay, I think I know what the United Way is. It is, to quote Wikipedia, an international network of over 100,800 local nonprofit fundraising affiliates. So it's the largest nonprofit organization in the US by donations from the public prior to 2016. And they give a lot of their money out to like American Cancer Society, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Catholic Charities, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Salvation Army, and more. So kind of what they are, they're kind of like, it almost reminds me of like Seinfeld when they talk about like, we're a non, is it the Human League or whatever, his like the Human Corporation, where it's like we're a corporation that like does things for corporations. It's kind of like they're not
Essentially, yeah.
really like
They
they're
take in the money and then the more
yeah.
money they have, the more money they can give to other nonprofits.
Yeah, they're kind of like this weird middleman. Or like, remember The
Mhm.
Office when there was like the kids bring your kids to work day, and the one kid was like, "Why doesn't the paper just sell directly to the consumer? Like, why do they need to go to you to sell
Yeah,
the paper or whatever?" And I just thought like
exactly.
it's kind of like that. So,
Mhm.
so they were like, "Okay, we want to break a world record. They wanted the publicity." And they wanted to raise money, classic, right? So the idea was like, well, we should do something fun. Like it should be, because like, the idea with most, like a radiothon or like an event to raise money, it's
Mhm.
always like sad, right? It's like, oh, like Sarah McLachlan music, the dog needs food, the kid needs food, like, remember those? Okay, I still like can picture, those like, it's like the kids with like the cleft, lips
Oh
or
yeah, the
whatever.
cleft palate.
Yeah, like those,
Mhm.
like they always kind of target like your emotions and like this is
Yeah.
sad, like I buy into it. But they were
Or the
like,
in the movie theaters, they did the St. Jude like previews with like Jennifer Aniston and like all the celebrities with just like the sick kids on their laps, and they're like, "You can help Sarah right here."
yeah,
Like I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't."
effective but super sad.
Yeah.
So they were like, let's do something fun, and they were like, well, what if we did the world record for simultaneous release of balloons, which to me is like ridiculous off the bat. If I was on this committee, I'd be like, no, that's stupid and
Mhm.
environmentally dangerous, which we'll get to.
But at the
So,
time, that was what people did often. I mean,
well,
up until recently.
this was definitely, people were starting to kind of consider that like it wasn't a good thing. I think
Yeah.
this was you, and we'll kind of get there. This was
Okay.
definitely, I feel like, and for someone who wasn't around in the 80s and was around in the 90s, but as a child, like I feel like the 80s and 90s was like this kind of moment of like oh, like some of these things that
Save the
like we've
planet.
been doing. Yeah, it's like this was kind of the beginning, like the slow kind of, I think before then in the
Mhm.
60s, 70s, it was like, oh, those hippies, those, those losers, like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna eat my steak and release balloons, whatever it was. So so they were inspired actually by Disneyland, who last year in 1985 set a record called Skyfest that released 1 million balloons into the air. So they were like, we could beat 1 million. Let's go for 2 million. And they actually worked with an LA based company. And this guy was called Treb Heining. And he has a little company called Balloon Art. He spent 6 months preparing for this.
Jeez.
6 months, dude. That's like one what, like if we live for 80 years, that's like 1/190th of your life dedicated to like this event. I mean, that is a
And
kind of
it's
a weird big deal.
I wonder how much, he got paid to focus on all that or how much those balloons were and everything. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to share that, but it's like to not do any other business probably for 6 months just cuz you're like trying
Mm-hmm.
to pump all this out, make sure you have enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot for Cleveland.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into it. Actually, in a second, I'll kind of explain more about
Okay.
that. So what they decided to do, they created a net type structure the size of a city block. And the idea was that the balloons would kind of go up into this net and then they would be held there. And so
Mm.
this net measured 250 feet by 150 feet. It was 3 stories high.
Jeez.
And yeah, it was covered with that woven mesh net. Okay. So this was back when Higbee's was still around, by the way. So for those who
Ooh,
don't know Cleveland, downtown public square, it's like a square that is public.
that's public.
It's not a park. It's like a plaza, and like they
Yeah.
actually recently updated it so you can go, and they have like a little sprinkler thing for like the winter or the summer. The winter they put on this gorgeous light display. The RTA
Yeah.
cuts through, and then nearby is Tower City that has the mall, the Jack Casino, a lot of the culture, city governance, the office building. So it's kind of like it's I would say it's the heart of the city. I
Yeah, I was
mean,
gonna say it's like here's like come here and then you can find your way out of the city kind of. But like if you're here, you can go any direction
mm,
basically and figure it out. So I think
yeah.
that's a good way to describe it.
And it's interesting too because like remember when American Ninja Warrior filmed here? That's where they
Yeah.
did their show was on Public Square. Like that's how like so I think it's like a good
Yeah.
kind of central representation of Cleveland.
Hmm.
So where were we? Okay,
Higbee's.
so Higbee's. So the casino used to be Higbee's, which was kind of like a Kohl's but regional, and they I think actually sold to Kohl's or they sold the company off. So next to that building, it's not a casino. They actually had scaffolding that was 2 stories tall. And so then they had larger balloons that were going to be outside of the mesh. And so the idea was, okay, if we release the larger balloons with the mesh, the larger balloons will kind of take off with the mesh to release the small balloons underneath it. That was the idea. All right.
Logic.
I don't love that idea because, like, to me, it's like, well, what happens if these large balloons carry this giant net
Just
across the
like
city?
all the way. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I think if anything, what they should have done was have like maybe like do the giant net, but then like okay, at the same time, we'll do a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. We cut the net, or I don't know. I just feel like I
Something.
don't love this idea. So
No.
so then this was Treb. So he explains that he was the project manager. He worked for it for 6 months, lived in Cleveland for a month to prepare for it. We wanted to design the structure that filled a city square and could stand up to about 90-mile-per-hour winds, which was building code. The one-piece net was fabricated by the exact company that he founded that built the cargo nets actually for the space shuttle. This was like
Oh,
pretty legit.
impressive.
So you asked earlier about the cash.
Yes.
$500,000 to put this on. So I'm assuming the bulk of that went to paying for the company who kind of did the logistics, paying
Yeah.
for the balloons, which, if we're talking about 2 million balloons, that's gotta be what, 1/5 of that budget? I mean, that's
And
a
then you
lot of
got to
money.
pay the man
Permits,
for his time too.
instructions. Well, yeah, that was the lead thing for sure, right? He's being paid for that.
Seriously.
But the rest of them were actually volunteers. So the day of, inside underneath that net within that scaffold structure, they had 2,500 students and volunteers who just sat there filling balloons with helium and then tying the knots. Logan, I would not do this. No way could I do this. I'm sorry.
That's insane. I mean, I guess if you're passionate about the United Way and you're like, you know what? I really like what they're trying to do here. And I don't know, but or if you need like something on your resume or something, I don't know, but that's
I'm a balloon tire.
you could say I volunteered for hours
Yeah.
for like a major charities world record attempt to, but so like it sounds impressive in theory.
Yeah.
Sounds miserable to actually do though.
So what they would do, they would, have the valves of helium, blow up the balloon, tie the balloon, and just toss it up into the net. Just let it go, and it goes up into the net structure, right?
Hi.
So Cleveland.com has this quote: "Fingers numbed and bled. Wraps of medical tape kept the volunteers going." So then this was one of the volunteers. She was 16 years old. Her name was Mandy. She went to Trinity High School, and she said, "It was an assembly line nonstop. I was a tire. I was not a very good tire before the event, but after a while, I could do it with my eyes closed. It didn't take long to get good at it, and fast, about 20 seconds a balloon." So she got to a point where every 20 seconds, she was blowing up a balloon, tying it, releasing it, grabbing the next balloon.
I have been at parties where there's been a lot of balloon tying. That stuff it really starts to, because you have to like wrap it around your finger, and so it starts to like cut off circulation, and I'm sure like you start getting cuts and stuff, and so I can't imagine trying to do 2 million of those. Like just that would hurt.
There would be a lot.
Insane amount. Yeah.
So and just another, so you're probably wondering, how are they making money? So actually they sold sponsorships, so $1 for every 2 balloons basically. So that was kind of like the sponsorship, which I guess I don't really understand. Like, so it wasn't like they put your name on 2 balloons. It just was like, oh, here's $1 and that supports 2 balloons. A little wishy-washy.
Like when people like buy stars, I think it's like, my star's up there somewhere, but it's kind of just like the thought that counts, I guess.
Yeah. So the night before, the Friday night before, there was actually a seam in the building, which caused them they had to rebuild parts of the netting. So that Friday night, there was actually a giant storm, which, typical Cleveland weather. So then Saturday morning, they're all, bright and early, tying the balloons. Another rainstorm was coming. So they were like, we have to go now or we can't go at all. So they were trying to get to 2 million. Remember, they stopped at around 1.4 million at 1:50 p.m. And so at this point, everyone has gathered, all the tires have tied, there's people in downtown, the media's down there, right?
There's marching bands playing and the trumpets are playing and everyone's excited and
let's
the mayor's there in his top hat and
for charity.
Woo!
Like the Mr. Monopoly guy's there, Mr. Peanut is there.
Seriously, it's a whole event for Cleveland. Everyone's so excited.
Well, and here's what's crazy. Multiple people from the United Way and like they were like, this is going to put Cleveland on the map, which to me is ridiculous. This is a one-time event. Like a one-time event doesn't put a city on a map. Like what puts a city on the map is like a rock hall, museum, institutions, places that people can actually visit when they go to the city, right?
I was going to say, actually, Cleveland was already on the map because our river had caught fire by that time. And so people remembered us.
Look at us with our environmentally dangerous activities here in Cleveland. So if you see the pictures, it's a little weird because you can see how the netting didn't work out completely because you'll see like bulges where the netting still kind of is like in place. However, eventually all those balloons go up and there's pictures of how the city looks. And
real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it.
If you see those pictures, it does look kind of cool.
It does, 100%.
If nothing bad happened and it wasn't bad for the environment, you see that and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like really pretty and colorful, but we know that didn't happen that
Yeah.
way.
So I was watching some of the footage, and this newscaster goes, "There's no mistake on the lake anymore." And I was like, "Oh, come on. Like you just can't
Boo.
like the idea that this event was gonna like, oh my god, you guys, I thought Cleveland sucked, but they just released all these balloons and
And
they're the
now I
best
love
city
them.
ever." Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna expunge everything bad that ever happened in Cleveland. And now it's just a golden city.
Yeah. And actually the city of Cleveland, they actually went along with it because they also thought, hey, it's good publicity, which is just
Hmm.
so funny to me. I don't think of this as like great publicity. Like, okay, it's a cool one-off event for the city, but like, yeah, I don't get why they thought that people like, oh, we're living in Nashville, we should go to Cleveland. Oh, hey, I'm here in Alaska, I'm gonna travel to Cleveland. Like, I don't think this was a motivation. So
I think because we know how it ended, it that adds to it. But again,
mm,
like I said, the pictures are cool. So
mhm,
like imagine seeing the balloons over the city.
mhm,
Number one, it's a success. Number two, it's not bad for the environment. You see those pictures from somewhere
mhm,
else and you say, oh, the city looks really pretty with everything going on. Like, I kind of want to go visit, you know, and then
mhm,
you go check it out. So I kind of get it in theory, and world records were super exciting. And I feel like a little bit easier to break back then. I feel like world records
mhm,
nowadays just keep getting harder and harder because people just keep going at it and getting better and better. And so it's just so hard to break any world record now. And
mhm.
so it's just, big deal, fun stuff. So I don't
Fun
know.
hashtag fun stuff.
Hashtag fun stuff, Cleveland.
Okay, so the idea, so they released 1.4 million balloons. So the
Hmm.
idea with a balloon launch, or just in general, you have a helium filled latex balloon going outside and it's going all the way up. The idea is that the pressure inside of the balloon will become too much, so it'll explode the balloon, and then the shards of latex will peacefully come down to earth. That is the idea. So United Way thought the balloons would go high in the atmosphere. The pressure causes the balloon to expand and burst. Remnants come down. So that's what they thought. However, they did
Hmm.
not know, they didn't study Cleveland weather, because here's what happened. The Balloon Fest balloons collided with a front of cool air and rain that caused the balloons to drop to the ground, still inflated. So instead of rising and exploding up high in the sky, these balloons were pushed down. They're still intact, these orbs, and just clogged the land, clogged the waterways. So about 1 million of the 1.4 million balloons fell to earth immediately. Like, just they
Hmm.
went up and came down, like, just boop.
And just think, like, a balloon isn't, I mean, some of them were probably smaller, but they're not like little guys. They're decent size.
Mm-hmm.
1 million of those in the water, on the streets, like falling just everywhere, all around Cleveland. Not great.
So the Atlantic posted a video that said that the organizers thought that 10% of the balloons would land in Lake Erie. That fact, actually, 60% landed in Lake Erie, and they were unpopped. So Lake Erie was covered in about 600,000 unpopped balloons, and most of them actually landed in Canada. So like that's what's kind of like almost like a
Take that,
screw you,
Canada.
yeah, like kind of like you could deal with it, Canada. So here's what's really interesting, though. So immediately, environmentalists complained about the balloons being pollutants, but multiple sources, this is interesting, said that no, the balloons were actually biodegradable. But in 1986, did they
Yeah,
have
okay.
biodegradable balloons back then?
I have no idea, but I feel like that's just, trying to save face, like, ah ha ha, oops, 1 million balloons just fell to the ground. Don't
Yeah.
worry, they're safe for the environment.
Well, it kind of reminds me of when I was in Asheville, or no, was it Wilmington? Wilmington. We did a ghost tour, and there was this street that was a graveyard. Or there was a graveyard, and they wanted to put a street through it. So the city said, "Hey, we'll move all the bodies, and then we'll put the street in there." So the city they took the bodies, moved them to a different graveyard that was like further out because they wanted the street.
Hmm.
Well, many years later, they were doing construction to find out that the city lied. They didn't move the bodies, they just moved the headstones.
See, all it just takes is one city person to say, yeah, no, trust me. tell everyone else.
Yeah.
Just say, yeah, came from this guy.
Isn't that
It's obviously
crazy?
true.
So because of the balloons, Burke Lakeport Airfront, they had to close for 30 minutes. There was many car accidents because people were, looking at the balloons. There was balloons on the roads, right? It was chaos.
You can't see the lines if there's balloons everywhere.
Mhm.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. Balloons landed on a pasture in Medina County, and it spooked Louise Nowakowski's Arabian horses that
Oh
allegedly
no.
suffered permanent injuries
Oh
because of
god.
being spooked by the balloons. So eventually, Louise Nowakowski sued the United Way of Cleveland for $100,000 in damages. They settled for undisclosed terms. I'm betting that they probably paid out most of that, if
Oh
not
yeah.
all of that. I mean, just
Hmm.
to avoid the publicity. So it's chaos. It's just chaos. But here's kind of where this to me is it really kind of leans towards the true crime a little bit more. So two fishermen in their 40s, Raymond Broderick and Bernard Skulzer, but there's also some reports that say Skip Sullivan. So I wonder, I don't know, like if there was one report had the names wrong. I'm gonna go with
Hmm.
Raymond and Bernard, but so they had gone out on September 26th and they were reported missing by their families the day of the event. So they were missing for a little bit prior to the event. And they actually found their 16-foot boat anchored west of Edgewater Park's break wall. And for those who don't know Edgewater Park, that's just like left of downtown Cleveland. They found life jackets, hat, and fishing pole in the boat. The boat's motor was gone, and the sides of the boat were battered. So the idea that they thought was, okay, it's been pounding against the break wall for a while to have kind of gotten that damage on the boat. And it was found in the morning. Now, here was the problem. They were trying to search for these guys in the water. However,
Wait.
this
Let people guess real quick.
oh, go for it.
Can you think what would happen if Coast Guard had to try to find somebody in the water where there was 600,000 balloons?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the Coast Guard search and rescue helicopter crew had difficulties reaching the area because of the asteroid fields of balloons. They tried to look for them, but it was hard because of, all these balloons. And they talked about, well, you have orange balloons and faces, like the colors. So you're trying to look. And so 2 days after the event, they actually suspended their search. And subsequently, the fishermen's bodies were washed ashore. And the wife of one of the fishermen actually sued the United Way of Cleveland, and they also settled on undisclosed terms. She sued them for 3.2 million, and kind of similar with the horse lady, I feel like they paid most of that out. I
Oh,
feel
for
like they
sure.
they did not want the publicity in the press of going to court against a widow whose
Yeah.
husband may or may not have been saved. Who knows, right? But just like, yeah, it
Yeah, because they
definitely
could they
impeded the
could have
search.
been in the water with life jackets, orange bright life jackets, just waiting.
Mhm.
And after so many days, getting tired and can't do much, especially all these balloons start coming down, and then, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it really is an awful situation that could have been avoided. I mean, it's not like the
yeah.
United Way knew exactly what was going to happen and knew that there was going to be missing fishermen,
Hmm.
but still, don't try to do outrageous things sometimes.
So obviously they actually lost a ton of money on this event. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
clearly. The event actually is not recognized by Guinness. So the
Nope.
whole thing going into this was we're gonna break a record. And it's not really recognized by Guinness. And actually Guinness, because of the damage, they don't actually measure environmentally unsound events like balloon releases. And technically, Disney actually broke the event's record 8 years later in 1994 by inflating almost 1.6 million balloons and releasing them simultaneously. So the whole thing's kind of a wash. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing here, it comes down to like the actual lives of people,
Yeah.
in the, you're trying to find them in Lake Erie, but one of those car accidents could have been fatal. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we think about it, but like we're driving these machines going 60, 70 miles per hour. A distracted driver, or if a balloon gets in the way of the windshield or under a tire wheel or something like
Yeah.
that could have been terrible too. So, um, moral of the
I
story. don't do balloon releases. I'm sorry. It's not healthy for the planet. Even if it's biodegradable, I mean, I don't know. You don't want to be responsible if that balloon gets caught somewhere.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, did the people who donated get their money back?
No, of course not.
That sucks. Could you imagine having like your name tied to that? Like, oh yeah, I'm signing up to be a Guinness World Record breaker, and then all of a sudden you helped this disaster
Mhm.
happen. That would suck.
Yeah.
But
You have to check out the pictures. I think the pictures, I mean, it does look really cool. I have to admit, as much as I now know about the event and know about
yes.
the chaos and to me, the criminal elements. I mean, like I said, it's not intentional. Obviously, the United Way wasn't like, let's impede a search and rescue and hurt some
Yeah.
people in cars and cause some horses to have damage, right?
Arabian
But
horses.
yeah, Arabia. Thank you. Apologies. But these are consequences of the event.
Mhm.
So to me, that's why I think of it as true crime a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe just not the crime that people like to think
Yeah, it's not
about
like the
originally.
nitty-gritty, but like it is interesting because yeah, you got to deal with your consequences when you don't think about, you know, when something is of that scope, it's so huge.
Hmm.
Like it has multiple consequences, you know? So, I mean, United Way, shape up.
Hmm.
And I've never forgiven them.
Hey, well, that's the story. So I hope you liked it. I hope it was a good story.
It was a fun one. I liked it a lot. It was
Good.
interesting. It's nice to hear like stories sometimes, you know? It
Yeah.
feels very like kindergarten when you just kind of like sit and listen.
Yeah.
It feels nice.
Well, I want to do something local. I want to do something that I thought was a little bit more tasteful. And yeah, when this idea came to my head, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so fun.
It was
So,
fun. And I hope you all enjoyed it.
yeah.
And if you didn't, sorry.
We're still going to do a third one eventually. We'll do another one
Yeah.
soon.
Maybe around Halloween. I mean, this is awful,
Oh,
but maybe around Halloween we could do
yes.
another true crime
There
one.
we go. Ghost Stories
Fun.
2/True
Yes.
Crime Episode 3. There we go. That's
I
our
love it.
October. We already have October booked. I love it.
Got it. Boom. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. We appreciate you listening every single week. Hopefully, remember you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or
Mhm.
on YouTube. You can watch our beautiful faces on the Starbolt Studio page, including everything else that Matt does. He does a ton. And thanks so much for listening. Talk
Peace
to you next
out.
week. Bye.